Well, this weekend, the protesters in Ukraine received a visit from two American senators, John McCain and Christopher Murphy, who addressed the thousands of people you saw gathered there in Independence Square. Senator Murphy joins me now to talk about his trip and the political situation in Kiev. Senator Murphy, wasn't it a little bit provocative to go to Kiev and wade into what is effectively an internal Ukrainian dispute?
Well, listen, I mean, U.S. senators could stay home and never travel even when U.S. interests are involved, but clearly they are when it comes to the decision that the Ukraine makes. It's in the U.S. interest for the Ukraine, as Ukrainian citizens want, to orient itself towards Europe. It's also in the American interest to promote human rights across the globe. And Senator McCain and I decided to make this trip only after the Yanukovych government had a brutal crackdown of the protesters. And we left with assurances from the government that that wouldn't happen again and that people would be held responsible. Clearly, we didn't hear what we wanted to hear when it came to their orientation towards the European Union. But there are big interests both for the issue of human rights and for the United States in Ukraine today.
Well, you say this is what the Ukrainian citizens want, but as we've been reporting during the course of this week, whilst the thousands of people there in Independence Square who you address do want closer ties with Europe, there are actually also millions of Ukrainians who would prefer to have closer ties with Russia.
Yeah, listen, I don't claim that it's a 95-5 proposition, but I think it's pretty clear, not by the thousands, but by the hundreds of thousands of people who have turned out on that square, especially in the major rallies like we saw on Sunday, that Ukraine wants to be part of Europe. And of course, that's what President Yanukovych had led his people to believe. He ran for president. He operated in the first years of his administration as a friend of Europe. It has been only this sharp turn east in the last few weeks that has reoriented his focus towards Russia. And, you know, as one leader of the protests told Senator McCain and I while we were there, the only place that you find free cheese is in a mousetrap. There are conditions that come with this Russian money. We don't know what it is yet, but ultimately the long-term financial health of the Ukraine lies in access to the huge markets of Europe and the United States. This money from Russia may get Yanukovych through the next 12 months, but it does nothing to guarantee the long-term financial solvency of him and his people.
Well, the mouse went to the mousetrap and accepted the money today, and given the state of Ukraine's finances, perhaps one can have some sympathy with that decision. You said there that it is in America's interests for Ukraine to be closely tied, and you told the protesters the same thing, for Ukraine to be closely tied to Europe. Why?
Well, we right now are in the middle of negotiating a new free trade agreement with the European Union that we think will have huge financial benefits on both sides of the Atlantic. To my state of Connecticut, we do 40% of our trade with Europe. Ukraine clearly has a market that both our country can sell goods into, but we can also offer enormous assistance too. And so from an economic standpoint, having Ukraine as part of our new economic partnership is a benefit to us. So, you know, that's where a lot of our conversation begins and ends. And hopefully we will keep the president to his word that he is not joining the customs union. And ultimately, he will help deliver Ukraine to Europe. He clearly said that that was the end goal, but that end now seems a little bit farther out.
Okay, Senator Christopher Murphy, thank you very much for joining the program.
Thanks, Kathy.